Odyssey world, I'm Bob.
And I'm Jesse. Welcome to the official Adventures in Odyssey podcast.
If you've looked at pictures of our characters lately, you may have noticed that Mr. Whitaker looks a little different now than he did, a few years ago.
That's Mr. Whitaker right there in the center in 1997 at our 10-year anniversary. And then Mr. Whitaker looks really different than this Mr. Whitaker back from 1987 when Adventures in Odyssey first started.
So you may be wondering, why has Whit changed his look? Or for that matter, why have any of our characters changed their look over the years? We're going to find out on today's podcast. Over to you, Evan.
Thanks, Bob. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Evan David, the content producer for Adventures in Odyssey. I run the social media channels, I produce the comics, and I've also taken on the role of archiving the Adventures in Odyssey artwork from the very beginning till now. Producing art for an audio show is always a challenge because everyone has their own picture of the character in their heads. And obviously there's two schools of thought. Some in the audience want to imagine everything themselves. Don't show me anything. Just let me hear it and I'll build the universe in my head. And then others want visual reference when they listen. They want to show me the characters and the locations beforehand, so that way when I do visualize, I can make sure I get what the creators are putting out there and wanting me to visualize. With Adventures in Odyssey, of course, we have decided to illustrate the characters, because when we put out albums and whatnot, marketing, we do need to have something to look at and for something to catch people's eye. So today, though, we are going to be looking at our characters, how the characters have been illustrated, how they've changed over the years, the reason for those changes, and how different artists have brought their own spin to the characters. And we'll start with the main character, obviously, John Avery Whitaker. And we'll introduce our first special guest, because he was around when those characters were first being drawn. Odyssey co-creator, Phil Lollar. Welcome, Phil.
Hey, how you doing, Evan? So even at the very, very beginning here, so I see we have this Adventures in Odyssey, that first album out, and you can see the elderly gentleman in the lower left-hand corner right there. That's John Avery Whitaker. That was his. Yep, there he is. And our first rendition, that was one of the early renditions of John Avery Whitaker. We talked a lot about it. Steve Harris and I talked a lot about who we should be. When I was writing out Whit's biography, and I was writing out creating a lot of the stuff that eventually became Whit, I did do a description. I wrote out a physical description of him that we have pretty much stuck pretty close to that description. A couple of things that happened in the description was Whit walks with a slight limp because of the wound he received in World War II. He also, if you'll notice, his hair is longer here on that right side. That's because he only has half of an ear on that side. And we made that very clear with the artists, some of the artists. That was very clear because he, again, as a result of a war wound he received in World War II. That particular drawing, one of the inspirations for that drawing was the actor Wilford Brimley. This was back, of course, before we had the ability to pause live TV. So we had to be on the alert all the time. This is before we had phones in our cameras too. So we actually had to have a physical camera, like a Polaroid. And we had one. I had one, and I think Steve had one. And so we were thinking, if we can find anybody who looks like the people that we want these characters to look like, let's go ahead and take a picture of them real quick. So Wilford Brimley came up, and I think I snapped a Polaroid, or Steve did, and I brought it to him. Yeah. Let's change this. Let's change that. Let's change this. So it did progress to the next. Our next artist was Bruce Day. Very distinct style, as you can see, and we sent him the Wilford Brimley photo. But I also, right around the same time that we were doing Odyssey, when Odyssey first premiered, was one of the classic Anne of Green Gables on television up here, the classic series. And Richard Farnsworth, I looked at him and said, that's what it looks like. He's not so heavy set. He's a little bit thinner. The mustache, the silver hair, the mustache. Kind of his whole demeanor, the way he carries himself, that came kind of from Richard Farnsworth. So those were the first two early inspirations for John Avery Whitaker.
The next big change was with the 1990 animated videos. Started in 1990. They were all throughout the 90s. And to draw the characters for video, we needed a different approach, and we're going to hear why. But Bob Vernon was involved in all of the Adventures in Odyssey videos, and we are welcoming him to the podcast now. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me give you just a quick overview of the process of animating Odyssey, which I think might help you understand some of the decisions we made in designing the characters. So about 1990, we started, and that was well before 3D animation was a big thing. But when you create a character for 2D animation, you have to design them in such a way that they give the illusion of 3 dimensions, so they can turn, and move. And sometimes an illustrated character, like in a painting or maybe on a book cover, can look great in 1 dimension, on that kind of a plane. But if he's not designed specifically for animation, and if you were to turn that character sideways, he might look misshapen or even grotesque. So we've always got to keep in mind whether their construction lends itself to the physics of natural movement, because our animated characters are obviously going to do a lot of moving. The series was photographed on film, and that's 24 frames per second. On feature animation like Snow White, they shoot on what they call ones. And that means that every single frame of film is animated. You see 24 different drawings per second. And it gives a really smooth, lush, and fluid look. But, we didn't have a feature film budget, not even a fraction of that. So our designs had to be much, much simpler. And we animated on what we call twos. So that would be 12 individual drawings per second. Mm-hmm. Each frame or animation cell was hand-drawn, hand-inked, hand-painted, and then photographed against a background painting. And before we could animate any of our characters, we had to create these construction diagrams, like you're seeing there, complete turnarounds of the characters, so the storyboard artists and animators could study the character from every angle. We did that with Whit. I remember we told the character designer that Phil really saw him as a cross between Wilford Brimley and Mark Twain. And after a fairly long back and forth process, making a lot of revisions along the way, we finally came across an approved look for Whit that I think is a great classic design.
So once the animated series started, as far as the audio drama goes, it was strange to have 2 completely different styles for Whit that we're putting out to the public. So the audio show adapted Whit to look more like the videos, but still kind of distinct from that. Obviously, we can see in these, they're not hard adhering to the style guide of the animated series, but it's still very much, you can tell that that's the character design. And so, here he is on the covers of Clubhouse magazine and an Odyssey novel and all of those things. So, and obviously he retained some of the same things. He was illustrated by a variety of different artists, but they kept the features, like the water buffalo hair, as my friend Nathan Hubler likes to call it, where it's like, it looks like he's got water buffalo horns. I always called it the W hair, the upside down W. I don't know. Yeah. And he's always got the mustache, obviously. All right, but then another massive change, at least in the, if not the character design, but the artistic style in which the character is rendered. In 2000, the year 2000, the Odyssey team was looking for a new illustrator to bring some consistency to the illustrations for the audio drama, and they decided on Gary Locke.
Hello!
Welcome, Gary.
Hi.
So, Gary, you had done a couple of other illustrations for Odyssey through the years, but your first with this new round of stuff where you kind of got the steady gig was with the album art for Danger Signals.
It was a crowd scene. I don't remember why he was standing there with his arms wide open, but apparently,
I think they're throwing tomatoes at the guy behind him, at Bart Rathbone.
There's an illustration that somebody did of this exact scene, but it was in the style of the animated videos. And I imagine, I was not there, but I imagine they probably just gave you that and said, do this, but with Gary style.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. It was Gary style, meaning it had roundness to it. It had light and shadows and highlights and more fully rendered out. But we were trying to keep it pretty close to the characters from the animated series.
Yeah, and it looks great. This right here is my personal favorite illustration of Whit.
Cool.
I don't know. I just like it. It's very, very Disney, very cartoony.
What I
And,
really love about what you did, Gary, with this is the skin texture, the skin tones. His cheeks and things were there.
Yeah.
The lights and the darks and the highlights of the cheeks and his fingers and some of the things on the highlights. I thought that was really good.
As I teach kids to draw and paint, they want to know how to draw and paint a little better. I'm always talking to them about making things come forward, making things go back, and thus the shadows and the highlights. And that's what we were doing to it, getting it out of the flat art.
So by 2008, there hadn't been a new video in a while, and there was a hiatus. We were relaunching the audio series, and the team decided it was time for a refresh on the look of the characters. So after album 50, the hiatus happened, and then coming back, there was a little bit of a tweak on these guys. So Gary, do you remember the meetings about changing the illustrations?
Yeah, well, I came out to Focus, and we had like 3 days worth of talking and sketching and talking and meetings. That first sketch you just showed there was just me spending one night in the hotel room, just going at it and listening to his voice more and listening to all the characters' voices, and then working on what I thought he looked like in my head.
I love this one here. When I posted this on social media, the fans dubbed this Gigawit, because he's clearly been working out.
Yeah. He's like, you expect him to rip that sweater and shirt off and there's a Superman costume underneath it. That's pretty good. Yeah. He is in shape.
So we finally settled on a new look for Whit, and here he is. And I think he's slimmed down a little bit since then too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There's modern Whit, where he's really been on the Daniel fast.
Gary, how do you do this? Is this not a painting, is it?
I'm working on a Wacom
when you're doing this.
On a Wacom tablet, a big screen tablet, so I draw right on the screen with the electric pencil, and it's hooked up to my Mac, and I work in Photoshop.
Awesome.
All right, guys. So there are more characters in Odyssey than just Whit, so we need to move on to them. But before we go, just a quick montage of how other artists have drawn Whit that are not present here. Here we have David Hohen from the Imagination Station book series. He has drawn Whit.
Yeah, that's really good.
Here's Sergio Cariello. I think that's how you say his name.
Very nice.
And he's drawn comic books and the Action Bible, and this is how he's drawn Whit.
Mm-hmm.
This is our current Elsewhere in Odyssey comic artist, or one of them, Tiago Del Ponte, and I love this adaptation of the artwork. It looks pretty great.
He made Whit taller. Look at those legs.
Yes.
Oh.
Then we have another one by Sergio, but this is for the Young Whit book series.
Yeah, I got to say, these are my favorite. I love the Young Whit book covers.
Cool.
Oh yes, and here's the original version of Young Whit.
Early Photoshop.
And Jack.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've those both have changed. Those are no longer.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing with that one. I think that's probably the first time I drew him as young.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
This is for Blackbeard's Treasure, I think it was. Yeah.
Kept the water buffalo hair though. That's cool.
Yep. Got it.
Yep.
I like the one I did of him getting ready to jump off of the barn, and his mom. I think his mom's telling him no.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Connie Kendall. She's had some changes as well. So Connie's probably changed a little less than Whit. She's changed a couple of times. I mean, Whit's gone through several redesigns, but Connie maybe 3 or 4. But here we have Connie in as she appeared as Bruce Day drew her.
Yeah. Again, I think we just gave Bruce some parameters on who Connie is supposed to be, how old she is, what kind of a character she is, dynamic character. I think the thing that's changed the most with Connie is her hair. She started out in those early days with a different kind of hair, and then she's ended up with the big ponytail and that kind of stuff. So,
and her hair color seems to change as well, from brown to red and everything in between. Yeah. But yeah, I love all of the. Oh, and here we go. We have Gary drawing her with black hair.
Yeah,
so,
interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know which
girls
one.
Do that. Girls do that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. She has dyed her hair canonically in the show at one point. All right, so let's look at the animated series. Now, I have never seen this before, but I love it. It looks very Tex Avery.
Yeah, it's Jetsons, isn't it? It's like Judy Jetson.
What can you tell us about this, Bob?
Well, whenever we're designing the characters, we have to make sure that they fit into the universe of characters that we've already created. For instance, Charlie Brown or SpongeBob SquarePants don't belong in Odyssey. So for Connie, we kind of began by giving a designer a description of things like her age, attitudes, that kind of stuff. We even gave them our recorded scripts so they could hear Connie's voice and attitudes. And then we just kind of let them go wild, which is some of the stuff that you saw there. The first designs of Connie that came in were just a bit off target, in that in the first photo you showed there, she just looked a little bit too much chipmunkish.
Yes.
To us.
Yes.
And then later on, a little too pixie-ish almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of Tinkerbell look.
Mm-hmm. Tinker Connie.
And maybe just a little too cute. Neither of them seemed to fit with the rest of the characters in the world of Odyssey that we'd already established. And after giving some more direction, I believe we ended up going to another artist because those first ones weren't quite working. We finally ended up with a Connie that was in the ballpark. And here you can see a lot of the directions we were giving them. And so after many, revisions, her design was finally approved. And when it came to colors, there was one point where we tried her as a blonde.
Yeah.
That just didn't fit her character for some reason. You can see it there. We knew that Connie was fun, and at times she has a fiery spirit. And that seemed to go better to us with red or auburn hair. As for her green wardrobe, we were looking for complementary colors that were distinct from the rest of the cast. Nobody else was in green at that point. You don't want characters with the same colors, or if they stand behind each other, they start kind of blending in. You don't know where one begins and ends.
Here.
And green just seemed to go well. But, overall, I'm real happy with the way that Connie turned out.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I don't know if you guys were responsible for the ponytail, but now that's become,
iconic.
Yeah, iconic with the character. That's great.
Very emblematic of Connie.
This is Gary's adaptation of that same Connie design. And I have a question for both Gary and Bob. Are those jeans or sweatpants Connie's got on there?
Jeans, green jeans.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think they're jeans too, because originally, like I said, they were more of a bluer color. She wasn't quite the same color all the way through. She had a greener top and then a more teal or blue pants on.
Gary, anything you want to add to tell us about illustrating Connie? Anything that sticks out to you as unique?
The ponytail has got to be there for me, and I don't know how her bangs went from what you're seeing right there to what I did, or what I'm doing now.
I think that was the culprit of the 2008 redesign, which we can look at some of the art here. And again, just like Whit, we did some redesign work on Connie. So you could just tell us whatever you want about these. We're putting them up on the screen.
Well, there was a thing I was trying to do at the time to get kind of an Adventures in Odyssey character shape. And I was pushing it too far. The one here where she's on one foot and she's got her leg crossing there. That kind of face shape was what I was aiming at, and it just didn't seem to be working for everybody.
Was the direction trying to make her more what, real looking? I don't.
We were trying different hairstyles at the time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of pushing back on that because I like the quick read. My philosophy is always, if I've got two seconds to tell you a story visually, for enough for you to to hang on to it and keep it in your hand and spend the next 10 seconds to look at it. So I want to tell it quickly that that's Connie so fast that they don't have to think about who that is. So the ponytail and the split in the hair in front, that's what I'm trying to do, is just get shapes that work, shapes and colors and costumes that work every time to go, boom, that's that character. Now, what are you trying to tell me?
So obviously we still see she's carried over some of her colors. She's still wearing green a lot of the time. But then we also have this outfit, which is we've lost the green except in her eyes. Here's some art from Elsewhere in Odyssey with Brian Dawson. Obviously he's drawn the character. We also have something from our bite-sized artist, Kyrie Jenny.
Okay.
Let's move on to the last of the big three, Eugene. Going all the way back to the beginning again.
Oh my goodness
Here
gracious.
we go.
I love that.
Phil, what can you tell us? This is Bruce Day.
Yeah, it was really just giving him a basic. Eugene is a brain. He's a computer on the computer in tennis shoes, kind of thing. Bruce, I think, made him far more retro, almost 1950s in this, in this kind of an illustration.
Red green show.
But yeah, very much so. But the glasses were definitely there. That was fine. See, here again, we have him. Same kind of situation where very, very, very Bruce Day drawing. The hands are very very stylized in terms of that. But again, the hair flipping up that way, and the glasses are pretty much those are the iconic things, I think, for Eugene more than anything else. Even in these early shots, they're much more. They really became, I think, iconic. The hair and the glasses in the videos.
Well, let's get to the videos because this is Eugene's, obviously, his most iconic design. So, Bob, what was the origin of Eugene's look here?
From what I remember, the idea was that Eugene's design or shape should complement Whit's, really stand off from it. And, there's a rather sharp contrast between Whit's rather rounded design and Eugene's more elongated design. But they look good together. Yeah. And Eugene was also designed with the idea that he would be bringing some levity to the show. So his design, the vest, the thick glasses, the bushy hair, harkens to more, comedic characters. To be honest, I can see, a bit of Art Carney from the Honeymooners in there. I can see a bit of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo in there. Mm-hmm. I think that there were probably a lot of different influences.
And a question for the ages: why is his hair behind his glasses?
Okay, so now you've stepped into a controversial territory. I asked the original character designer about that once, and I was told that I was mistaken, that we weren't seeing his hair, but that was the reflection of his glasses. And if you go back and look at the first videos, you never see brown behind the glasses. What you're looking at now is a later one. Oh. And over time, some of the artists started drawing in brown back there. And it slowly evolved so that he looks like he always needs a haircut. But either way, I think it works. I really like, the Eugene we ended up with.
Gary, you once said that Eugene was your favorite to draw. Can you tell us why?
Oh, well, I like the shape of his hair. I like that the uniqueness of putting the hair behind the eyes. I like that it starts low in the back and then explodes up in the front. It just had a really good feel as your eye moves around. So it kind of dances all the way up, the movement that he has.
All right. Well, once again, we'll talk about the 2008 reboot. So wow, Eugene was redrawn to finally show his eyes. Gary, what do you remember about that redesign?
I remember just listening to the voices and trying to get this overall shape that I wanted to shoehorn into the whole situation. And you can see the pointy chin. I was really kind of getting all of them had some sort of a pointy chin that particular month that I was drawing. I'm not sure why. And yeah, I also I like big heads on characters because that's where the emotion and all the talking happens. And we've shrunk the head since.
Yeah, album 51, here we are. The very first time we see Eugene's eyes illustrated officially. Yeah. And I love how we gave it a story reason. It's not just like, hey,
yes,
everything's redesigned now, but no, he got a haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now let's look at the Eugene from today, where we'll see a couple of different outfits, but no matter what he's wearing, he's always got a vest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here we have him in the comics, just again adapting that design from Gary. I think the only difference here is they put him in a sweater vest instead of a vest. All right, so here we have Wooten, and Wooten was a very interesting one because the original idea for him is that we would never see Wooten's face, as you can see in these illustrations. And the character was like, it took inspiration from Wilson from the 1990s TV show Home Improvement. So we would always draw him hidden. But in 2008, when the team was redesigning the other characters, it was time to draw Wooten. He'd become one of the main cast. He'd become a very popular character. And if we wanted to show him on, album covers, we needed a illustration of him. So obviously we're looking at these and they are varied and very different. So Gary, what can you tell us about all the different creations for Wooten?
I was sitting around that week I was up at Focus. I was sitting around listening to him. That's the one I like right there. And listening to his voice and the way he acted, and I just wanted kind of more girth to him. I like this one a lot too. Again, the head's too big. I like getting that flow in there, and he's just constantly on the move. It's just less straight edges to him,
So for all of the concepts that didn't make it, your favorite one was the giant Giga Wooten?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. He's always working with the mail. And yes, I like that.
Nice. So we got pretty far with this version
Giga Wooten
before deciding it should really be like the more heavy set one should be more like Red Hollard instead of Wooten.
Yeah.
And so then we slimmed. Look at his chin, man. Look at his chin.
You can see the
down
chins
there.
I liked. Yeah.
Woo.
I like the mustache versions too.
Yeah.
Really like the stash.
But eventually we slimmed him down.
Yeah, right there.
There
Got
you
him
go.
closer to the
There
current
you go.
look. All right. And there we are with Wooten Bassett. His look hasn't changed much since then.
Yeah.
All right. And now we will get to a controversial character in the life of Adventures in Odyssey artwork, and it's Liz Horton. Liz was illustrated right around the time the episode Room Enough for Two was being scripted, which established very clearly that Liz has red hair. But Gary never got the note because we neglected to tell him. So we've had comments for a long time from listeners saying her hair was wrong. And so then when I got here and started working with all the art and putting out, stuff for the club and for the social media, I decided I would take matters into my own hands and try to correct this mistake. And so what we have here is the original design for Liz, but I've taken some of the hair from Gary's illustration of Valerie and kind of photoshopped it together to give her the red hair that she has in the show.
It's believable. You did a good job.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's look at Harlow Doyle.
Oh my.
There he is right there. I had no idea that was him. Nathan had to tell me that. This I thought was a great look for Harlow. It really matched his voice. But then as we went forward, Harlow again was affected by the 2008 redesign. So here's one we had where he showed up in Clubhouse magazine, and after that he had a very different look right here.
Wow.
Where he's cleaned himself up, he's gotten in shape.
Down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all Gary stuff. And Gary, you did a ton of Harlow illustrations.
Done a few. Yeah. His hat still vexes me as far as how to draw it. Like, there's weird things that happen with the brim of a hat as it comes around a face from different angles. It just vexes me, and I always look at it and go, I missed it again.
I think it looks great.
It's all right.
Yeah, I know that's great.
Did you have a certain inspiration for this look, Gary?
I'm thinking 1950s, 40s gumshoe, private eye guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just
totally.
Was Dick Tracy a direct?
Yeah. There's been some Dick Tracy in the research as I go through these.
So then, when it came time for Harlow to appear in the comics, I really, again, like I said, I really like the bulkier version because I think it sounds a lot more like, or looks a lot like he sounds in the show. So I petitioned and asked if we could bring back Chunky Harlow, if he could get back on the donut diet. And they,
Harlow.
yeah,
I like it.
They agreed, and so now that's the design we want going forward. Yes. So this is a mock-up. This is not an official Gary art piece, but this is a mock-up that we have given to him and all of our other artists and saying, hey, next time Harlow shows up, let's do it like this.
Wow, that's an Otis Campbell hat that he's got on there.
Last but not least, and again, there are tons of characters we could talk about, but we only have a limited time for this iteration of Odyssey Art Roundup. Our final character is the one character who has never changed. Ever since we first illustrated this character, they have remained a constant rock in the landscape of Odyssey artwork, and that character is Lucy Cunningham Schultz. No matter how she's been illustrated, she's always looked pretty consistent. Phil, was she modeled after Jenny Mullen, the actress who played
to a certain extent? Yeah, to a certain extent. The best shortcut to do with the kids, especially, was to say, okay, well, what are the voices, what do the actors look like? But yeah, Lucy was always the glasses were always part of what she did, of her character. The kind of the big hair in the front and wrapping around her head that way.
So Gary, you drew Lucy years ago, and this was before you came on as the official artist for Adventures in Odyssey.
That's probably 1988 or 89, probably 88.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, that's far
Here's
back.
another one.
Yep. There. Yeah. Whether she's excited, what does she do? She got that hair and those glasses.
Yep. Looks great. And
yeah, how they stay on her cheeks, I don't know.
And
wow.
And here she appears in the comic book as an adult,
grown up.
Yes,
yep.
At Donna's wedding, as one of the bridesmaids. And if you look at the panel she's in, Jack Davis is also in there.
There you go.
So that's her husband in the show.
Real life husband and wife.
Yes, that's right. The actors were married as well. There's so many characters we could talk about, and again, we only have so much time. There's folders and folders of other characters that we pulled art for that we just don't have time to look at. So my question to you guys is, would you want to do this again with more characters at some other time?
Sure.
I'm good. I don't get to talk to anybody but my dog. Only out in the Ozarks.
Awesome. I'm game. I bet you the hosts of this podcast are game. I mean, they've let us take over the airtime for this long, so we'll see. But that would be super fun. Looking forward to that. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. And thank you guys for being here today and for being such important parts of Adventures in Odyssey's visual legacy. And hopefully that will continue for years into the future. So thanks again.
Cool. Pleasure.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, it's amazing how many character illustrations we've had over the years.
Just a reflection of all the Adventures in Odyssey stories we've told, I'd say.
Yeah, like nearly 1,000 of the audio show, plus books, comics, clubhouse stories, even the animated series.
Yeah, and those stories are just going to keep on coming, as will the character illustrations.
Well, that's all for this edition of the official Adventures in Odyssey podcast, a presentation of Focus on the Family.
Check out those character illustrations and a whole lot more at our website, adventuresinodyssey.com. I'm Bob.
And I'm Jesse, reminding you that with God in your life, every day is an adventure.